Please welcome CEO of American Airlines, Robert Isom, in conversation with Skift Airline Weekly editor, Edward Russell.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully all of you had a good Halloween last night. I know that my son was dressed up as a pilot, fittingly, as he trick-or-treated last night. What about you, Robert? Were you dressed up? Or?
I hope he was an American Airlines pilot, right?
He was a generic pilot, but I'll send him the pilot Cadet Academy.
Cadet Academy.
Started,
you can't start him soon enough. We need all the pilots you can get. Well, over in my neighborhood, we had a lot of baseball players. A lot of Rangers fans coming our way. So I hope everybody got to see the game last night. But that was a lot of fun. I handed out candy last night.
Someone's got to do it. My son would have probably hit your house a couple times.
Exactly.
Excellent. So we're here to chat about American. There's a lot going on. Early November. We're staring down Thanksgiving and Christmas. Right. What are you guys seeing for the holidays?
Well, we're getting ready like everybody else, and I expect a pretty robust travel season, especially over the holidays. People want to get out and want to connect, and so domestically we see a lot of strength, and where we're strong internationally, especially across the Atlantic and then into the Caribbean. In Central America, a lot of strength there. So we're going to get ready, but for an airline, it's the World Series, it's the Super Bowl, it's all of that combined into one. So a lot of our work right now is all dedicated to make sure we're ready for whatever comes our way. So certainly we're planning for heavy loads. Yes. Right, but on top of that, you've got inexperienced travelers and the holiday rush. And of course, let's face it, we're having record-setting low weather here in Texas right now. I didn't expect that we'd have to be, de-icing this time of year, but that's the kind of stuff that we have to be ready for. So, look, we're going to be all set. American has run the most reliable airline of all the network carriers, certainly over the last year, probably over the last 18 months, and we're going to continue that over the holidays.
Good. I mean, that's what I always say: is an uneventful flight, whether it's full or not, is the best flight.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So it's interesting you talk about.
It's a good way to run an airline too, by the way. All that rework with lost bags and customer misconnects. So, it's one of the things that we pride ourselves in. Look, things are going to happen. Let's face it. On the best of days, you can have 100% completion factor, and we fly 6,000 flights a day. But even on the best day, we'll be 90% on time. So that means 10% of the time, for us, it's 60,000 customers a day, right? You've got to figure out, how you're going to get them back on their way. So one of the other things that we've been spending a lot of time on is how we can be the quickest to recover and make sure that our customers, really have the convenience and the tools in their hands to get back on their way without much of an inconvenience.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the most important thing. Someone who's been stuck with his kids in certain hubs for several days trying to recover. But do you do mostly out and back flying out of your hubs to keep the operations going smoothly, or do you flow your aircraft around the system?
No, they flow around, right? So we did a lot of work before the pandemic. So American and U.S. Airways, they merged way back in 2014, and that was when the merger was announced. But it was a pretty complex merger that we really only completed as we got into 2019 prior to the pandemic. Our pilots were merged early on, but our mechanics only signed a joint collective bargaining agreement in 2020 at the start of the pandemic.
I remember that. Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of pieces of the puzzle had to be put together, and we did some great work in terms of rationalizing our fleet and getting it to something that I think is pretty simplified. So we have two flavors of narrow-body aircraft. We've got the great A320 family of aircraft, the 319, 320, and 321. Yeah. And I think we're one of the world's largest operators of that aircraft. And it's a fabulous aircraft. 737s, but on the wide-body side, all we operate now are the 787s and 777s. So we did a lot of work to try to really simplify. But when you do that, you find that you have aircraft that actually need to fly different places and different missions. So what we do oftentimes is out of some of these, cities that we serve quite a bit. So, a London Heathrow where we serve, 20 times a day. We can use points like that to then help, rotate aircraft through the rest of the system. And then the hub network that we've built within the U.S., which, fortunately is in the fastest growing cities in the United States, it also offers us the ability to actually, do some flying that goes from hubs and then allows those hubs to actually then route aircraft elsewhere in the country.
Nice.
Yeah.
Keep everything moving, but of course, always with an eye on getting things recovered quickly and stuff. You mentioned the narrowbody fleets. Do you guys have any 321s with those geared turbofan engines that are having issues? Or are you all CFM?
So, back at the time of the merger, that was actually something that I sat down with the team and talked about. We wanted to be an airline that was as simplified as possible. And at the time, U.S. Airways was a very large operator of the 320 family, but we had been a V2500 shop, and then we had the new purchases were all going to be CFM and LEAPs. So on that front, we made the decision that even though there had been some moves to go with the geared turbofan, we went ahead and simplified around the GE CFM product. And that's actually been a really reliable power plant for us. And look, the world needs reliable engines, and Pratt does a wonderful job. And I know that they'll get the GTF in a position where it's as reliable as anything else. But for now, I'm really pleased with the aircraft and the power plants that we have, because let's face it, if you don't have engines, you're not running. So it's really important, and I feel like we're in a pretty good spot.
Good. And I mean, for those listening, just say that Pratt & Whitney has issues with the geared turbofans, grounding planes, and you've got to be happy that you don't have any of those and you have that simplified fleet. But
well, I'll tell you this though, to give Pratt some props. We are the largest operator of the V2500 engine, and it is a fabulous piece of machinery.
Nothing like a good engine.
Exactly.
So one of the big questions in the U.S., shifting gears a little bit, is capacity growth.
Right.
There's a lot of talk about there being overcapacity, especially in some of these leisure markets like Florida, Vegas, that everyone thought for the longest time could basically just be black holes of demand. You keep adding flights. What are your thoughts? Do you think there's overcapacity in the U.S. or?
Well, look, all I can really talk to is what American sees and how we view. The world, this business hasn't changed, and it's much like any other business. It's supply and demand, plain and simple. And at the end of the day, we're going to run our airline to be as profitable as possible. And for us right now, we like the fleet that we have and the capacity that we do have right now and we have coming. The growth at American is going to be, quite a bit just getting back to where we were. We're not quite back to where we were in 2019. A lot of that is due to the fact that we had some difficulties in getting our fleet back up because of pilot constraints. So on the mainline side of the world, it's just where we are. We had to train a lot of pilots coming out of the pandemic. And
my son is available, by the way.
Exactly, right.
Looking.
Right. For anybody. And we should talk about that, because becoming a pilot right now is a fantastic career. But we had some constraints, and now the schoolhouse is kind of sized for the need. Yep. We'll be in good shape on that front. But from a regional perspective, look, so many pilots were pulled from, the experienced pilots were pulled from the regional airlines up to the main line, and we found ourselves with a shortfall, not necessarily with total number of pilots or first officers, but with captains that are really necessary to help, get first officers, fully up to speed in their minimum hours. So we find ourselves in a position right now, in terms of capacity, that a lot of Americans' capacity growth is just the underutilization of both mainline aircraft and then getting our regional fleet back up. And so as I take a look out into 2024, there's good news for a lot of regional communities that actually saw just massive reductions in terms of capacity. And on that front, look, American's got a fleet of 175s and CRJ 900s and 700s that are just ready to go and get back to servicing those communities that lost so much service. So in terms of the kind of growth that we see, we're going to be very judicious about what we do bring back. We've got an order book that is fairly modest right now. I think we only have 30 deliveries planned for next year. And then a lot of the growth that we'll bring back is going to be more or less utilization flying, which is really efficient, and it's going to go to places that have actually been underserved.
Okay, so more Roanoke, less Orlando, basically.
Yeah. It's Roanoke and Lubbock and a lot of small cities, Kalamazoo's and Grand Rapids. It's going to be a lot of small cities throughout the United States, but it's a good place to be.
Okay, great. On international, you talked about transatlantic demand's already really strong. You guys have dropped a large schedule there for next summer, Copenhagen, some other new dots. Any concerns about transatlantic being oversaturated next summer as everyone starts adding flights to take?
Well, look, we've had a fairly modest schedule. But so much of what we do is really based around our partners, and so we've got a great partner with One World, and then ultimately with IAG, which is Iberia and BA. So a lot of our work is done in complement with those carriers, and we're very mindful of what our hubs can support. So as you take a look into next year, because of some of the issues with being able to provide feed into the hubs, especially like places like Philadelphia.
I was just going to ask,
right.
Philly is a hub that has yet to come back to 2019 levels, but
as we are able to bring the regional network back and really get the entire system where it needs to be, you'll see places like that getting service reinstituted. So for us, it's modest growth. It's returning to a degree of where we were, but really making sure that the rest of the infrastructure is in position to support it. But even on that front, the kind of the cities that we serve, really fully, and of course there's some new service that's really interesting. It'll be fun, but at the same time, we're based around the largest business markets in the world. So New York, London, and flying out to Haneda,
Apollo, Tokyo, the huge, nice. Speaking of shifting gears to Asia, that has long been I want to say a weakness, but American's been smaller to the Pacific than your main competitors. What's the strategy there? You're back in Tokyo, you're in Seoul, Shanghai's back to daily, but you pull out of Hong Kong during the pandemic. I mean, what's the strategy there as we look forward?
Look, we're going to fly where we can do so and make money. And with our network, we know what our hubs are capable of doing. We're not necessarily big in some of the coastal hubs where those have been points of kind of distribution throughout the rest of the country for some of the longer haul markets. We're cognizant of that, but at the same time, what we do is make sure that our network really does work in conjunction with our partners. So we're going to fly where we can, and we have the ability to really serve our customers. And then where we can't do that profitably, we're going to make sure that we have a network of partners that help fill out the rest of the system. So I take a look, and of course I've been in contact with the rest of the One World members, but we have a fantastic relationship with Qatar. The relationship with JAL is wonderful as well. You mentioned Hong Kong. Well, Cathay is a founding member of One World, and of course we have the joint businesses with Qantas and BA and JAL as well. So all a really solid network, and one that look, if there are holes in it, we'll figure out how to plug them.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've got some good friends of mine in Australia that are Qantas frequent flyers, and they're always telling me that DFW is such a better gateway to connect through than LAX, and they're happy that they're adding some spokes, not just Sydney, DFW, but Brisbane and Auckland and stuff. So.
Well, those friends like to connect through DFW. It's a wonderful place. That Terminal D. Where's Sean? Is he out? He's going to be speaking a little bit later. But anyway, no, look, we have a great relationship with DFW, and I think people will hear more about it later, but there's some expansion opportunities they're being pursued there, and American obviously is the hometown carrier. We're really behind it and have a great partnership. So I agree with your friends. If you want to connect, especially coming from Australia, wonderful place to do it.
Excellent. Well, I'll make sure to remind them of that next time they book their tickets. So, Speaking of international, something that a lot of people are excited about are the premium investments that American is making. I don't know if I actually know, but your new lie flat seats start with the A321 XLR next year, going on the 787s, 777s after that, new premium economy seats. Tell us a little about those investments and how that's going.
Well, hey, look, from a commercial perspective, we start with this, which is we want to have the world's best network, and then complement that with a rewards program that takes care of customers. And then along the way, we want to make sure that customers have the ability to really access, those services and amenities that, they find valuable. And then also that we can, offer them and make a margin on. So let's face it, premium, has come back very strong. If you look at, prior to the pandemic to where we are now, the book load factors in all these premium cabins are much. The premium load factors in those premium cabins are much higher, and I think customers view that as something that hey look, this is something that benefits them. They want to have access to, so we're going to be there with them. And as we take a look out into 2026, we have, I think, a growth of almost 46% of premium seats.
Wow.
So on the 787-9s, you'll see a new flagship suite with all the bells and whistles that are just wonderful. We've got the 321 XLR that's coming up in 2025 for us. Super excited about that, especially from an international perspective. That's going to see work, all over our system. But I know this, it's going to have a fantastic business class cabin, a fantastic premium economy cabin, and then a coach cabin as well that's going to serve the needs of customers. So I feel good about how we can serve, especially from an international perspective. And again, some of that will flow into other leisure and even domestic markets as we think about how we best serve from a transcon perspective as well.
Yeah. No, speaking of premium, you mentioned the book load factors are higher and stuff. Do you think that's going to continue? It's been a trend the last few years during the pandemic, but I mean, people rightfully wonder if there's going to be a point when the high savings rates that people built up during the pandemic sort of lapse and people can't afford to buy up anymore.
I think you have to take a look throughout, all of the economy and everything that we do. So, whether it's going to a ball game or going to a restaurant.
Maybe a Rangers game.
Maybe a Rangers game. Anything that you do, there's a sense that, hey, there's an aspect of change of taste from buying goods to things that, are more services and experiences. And I think that that's just a trend. It's something that, whether it was pandemic or just how we're evolving as a society, I think it's something that's here to stay. So we better figure out how to be out there in front, because everything that we see says that customers want more control and more ability to actually satisfy needs as they come up. So we'll be there with them, and I think it's something that in the long run, everything that I see suggests that it's here and part of the economy for the long run.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's good for you guys. Good time making that investment. So I know audience attendees, if you have questions, please submit them on the app. Since we're just talking about some new planes, I see someone's already asked you, where could American fly the A321 XLR? Please provide an example.
Oh, sure, I'm going to do that. Has our network team done that already?
I don't think Brian Zounton is here, so please feel free, fill us in.
Here's what I would say. I think it's going to be a great aircraft, and one that I think that can really help us from our East Coast hubs.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think it's something that can do transcon work. It certainly can do secondary city work in Europe. It can absolutely be something that augments our hubs that maybe even to the bigger business markets couldn't quite have the frequency that they wanted, right? And I think it can be something that's very helpful for us as we look south as well out of many of our hubs, whether it be Miami.
I mean, you have the best South America gateway sitting there in Miami. That's a lot, yeah.
Exactly. So it's going to be something that you see sprinkled throughout our network. And we've got a great order book and something I think we're if not the launch customer, we're going to be one of the first 2 or 3 to start taking aircraft, and the team's really excited about it.
No, it'll be good. And for those not familiar, I should say the A321XLR is just a longer range version of Airbus's re-engined A321neo. And it's, I don't know the range off the top of my head, but you can reach from like Philadelphia pretty far into Europe. Exactly. I want to say like Germany, Switzerland, places like that. So.
Exactly. So more to come, but I'm not breaking any news today that hasn't already been.
Those will be 2025, summer 2025 routes if everything goes according to plan. So you mentioned loyalty in your comments there, and that's been a big thing coming out of the pandemic, as loyalty has just become such a profit center for airlines. On your recent third quarter earnings call, I believe it was Vasu mentioned, that there's run rate to go on profit or revenue, but a good couple $100 million there. How do you drive more revenue out of that loyalty program? I mean, what's the strategy? How do you do that?
Well, it's different ways to look at it, and of course you can try to segment out and call it a profit center, but it's part of the airline, okay, and it's part of our distribution. The reason that our customers are so avid users is because they want to fly, they want to use the product, and at the end of the day, so many customers earn those miles because they want to go and take trips to the places that we're talking about. And we do this in a fashion that sure, there's ways you can earn miles that are outside of the airline, and that ultimately then translates into revenue that more or less is the revenue that you would have received for that future flight. So it works. It's something that I think it perpetuates itself because there's the desire, and then, oh, by the way, we have the ability to accommodate needs for customers as well. So as we go forward, this is something that we can really take advantage of, and when I say take advantage of, it's really meet the needs of customers for what they want. And as I take a look at our loyalty program, the thing that is probably different than us than some of our major competitors right now is that we may have the world's largest program, and we may have the largest co-brand credit card relationship, but it probably doesn't produce as much revenue because it doesn't really touch all the points of the travel ecosystem. And so as we look forward, I think that's untapped opportunity at American to take a base that is so broad today and to take it to another level. And the cool thing is we have partners that really want to go there with us. So I do see that as something that attracts more customers.
Yeah.
I think it provides more revenue, and I think it is something that is truly upside unique to American.
No, definitely. So what you're saying is it's not necessarily about size. It's about touching all the points in the travel ecosystem, like you mentioned. So more of that coming. Okay.
Right.
Okay. No, that's exciting. So one of the things, this is more industry broadly. There have been some recent comments by one of your peers, Scott Kirby at United, that the ultra low-cost carrier model in the U.S. is, I believe the quote was dead. Maybe I've taken some liberties with that. But do you have any thoughts on that? Are ultra low-cost carriers, we've seen losses at several of them in the last quarter. Is that model dying?
Well, let's think about that. I guess what I would say is that at American Airlines, our business model doesn't depend on the demise of anyone. Okay. I'm not betting for a future where that has to be the case. I'm not building the airline in that respect. At the end of the day, we're going to be prepared to take on all competitors. We've got a strong airline, as I spoke. I love our hubs that we have, the partnerships that we have. We spoke about the opportunities, and then just for it. And I love our fleet. We spent $30 billion. Over the last 5 years, 6 years, to get a fleet in place before interest rates, are really
conveniently raising how many billions of dollars of low-cost debt?
Exactly. So before interest rates really turned, we've got that all in place. And for American, the future isn't about having to go out and buy a bunch of stuff and kind of figure out where we go. We know where we're going to go. And as I spoke, we've got assets that are underutilized, and the investing part at least in the near run, is behind us. So we've got a lot of good stuff coming, and I just don't look at the world in a way where certain things have to happen where that enable me to be successful or the airline to be successful. And the other thing I just mentioned is that so much of the work that we all have, that the industry has coming out of the pandemic, has all been about getting the airlines back up and running. And that's another thing where, from an American perspective, we're there. We've built the airline back up. We are the most reliable now. And whether it's, fleet in place, the hubs in place, going out and figuring out how we get the value out of loyalty program, we have a good idea where we need to go.
The premium investments, all of that. So I've got to ask, there was some hints on the last earnings call about a potential new order coming from American for a narrow body. Is any more details on that? What would that be to replacing?
That's another one nobody briefed me on beforehand. So I'll thanks for that question. Well, but here's the way I'd frame it for you. American has a fleet of over 1,500 aircraft. Yeah. Okay, so even if you assume that the lives of those aircraft are 20, 30 years, it doesn't take much to get to a point where you say, hey, just to keep the same size, right? You have to bring in 30, 50 aircraft.
You're constantly replacing planes along the way.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the things I will say in regard to looking forward is that this idea that you go from boom to bust in terms of aircraft. So we did spend $30 billion over the course of 6 years. And that was largely because American and US Airways coming into the merger, had fleets that were in very different states and in some cases, underinvested. But, having that kind of big bubble, is not the way you want to manage your fleet. And everything that we're going to do is to really get it to a point where it's smooth so that we have the ability to grow when we need to, but also just to replace aircraft. So the answer to your question is yes, we're out there looking at aircraft needs, but it really is the time 2027 and beyond. We have a good fleet plan that's set for the next few years. And I'm really pleased with the relationships we have with Airbus and Boeing. And they're going to figure out a way to make sure that we are able to serve the network that we have in a way that is responsible in terms of growth and allows us a tremendous amount of flexibility.
Yeah, well, and you make a good point, 2027 and out, because Airbus and Boeing probably don't have many aircraft available to sell you before that. So it's
well, they'll take care of us.
Someone American size for sure. They'll find some slots.
Exactly. But as I said again, our look is 2027 beyond. And we'll be smart about that.
Okay. One of the things that American's done this year is made some changes in the way you distribute tickets. We've got a question from the audience. How is the adoption of the sort of direct connections, new distribution capability going for American? How's that performing?
Now, what I would do is just take a step back and we talk about NDC and changes to the distribution program. I think really it's just what do customers want, okay? What information do they need, and do they have access to your full suite of offerings, and can they service it in a way that is modern? And a lot has changed. And so, we call it new distribution capability, but really it's getting to being able to service your product over the internet. Okay, so whether it's the app or on the web or however you want to access us, it's important to be able to meet customers and provide them with the goods and services and then their capabilities to service their product. So, what have we been doing over the last few years? We've been taking a look at all of those places where we distribute and trying to find a way to make sure that those are all at the same level. When you shop for American, you ought to be able to shop and get access to everything. When you buy from American, you ought to be able to then go and service your product wherever without having to go through a number of different routes to do that. So I view this as a way to simplify. Our partners along the way from a technology perspective, from a GDS perspective, from the agencies. They understand it. And they want to get there with us because they know that ultimately we all have to have business models that allow us to serve and offer a product in a way that we can do profitably, and we got to get there together. So I've been really pleased with the start. Of course, whenever you're making moves off of legacy technologies, there's always starts and stops. But as I look out into 2024, I feel really comfortable about the platform that we have in place.
Nice, yeah. I mean, like you said, I think all of us who travel with any regularity want to be able to pick our own seats, buy our own upgrades, whatever it is that we want to do. We want that ability to just do it ourselves.
And you should be able to do that. And you know what? You do it really well, okay? And you don't need a lot of intermediaries, ultimately, to be able to tell you, what you can get. And oh, by the way, anybody along the way should have the exact same information, right? You shouldn't have to go and wait in queue at an airport or on a phone to get you what is just something it's not magic. It's information that you could easily have, and it's just quicker. And then ultimately for the airline, it's a really efficient way to run the airline as well. When you want to make a change of flight during a given day and say, take an earlier flight or take a later flight, now that's helpful to us. We know it, the information in advance, and not only can we treat you, more appropriately, but also it frees up resources that could be doing other things, or seats for other people to take advantage of.
Yeah, like you said, it's good on both sides, for
right.
Sure. So we're close on time. I want to ask one more audience question. I think this sort of dovetails with the NDC, but how have customer expectations changed from the pandemic in terms of experience as you guys have come out?
Right. Well, I think with all of us, there's just the world at large. There's not a lot of patience.
No.
And I think as a society, we have to be mindful of what that means. It's just like, look, it's not as if operating conditions have gotten any easier. Okay. The weather is more severe. We're all still dealing with supply chain issues. We all know the issues that we have with how we govern ourselves. The difficulties haven't gotten any easier, and
they arguably have gotten harder.
They've gotten harder. So there's ways that we can make it easier. Just as we talked, technology can help us in so many ways. But I think that just it feeds the desire to have almost instantaneous satisfaction. So we have to be mindful of that and help our customers and deliver in a way that makes the travel process as easy as possible. But I've got to give a big shout out to our frontline teams in all of this, because travel it's a person-to-person activity, right? It's not something you do from home, right? So our team members are out there every day trying to really make sure that we take care of customers in a way that they feel appropriate. And they've done that. They've done a remarkable job, from the pandemic through the turbulence last summer, through the last year. And I feel like we're giving them the tools that they need to get their jobs done. But it's really important for me right now to make sure that we're taking care of our frontline team in all this, because I know that if we do, ultimately they're going to take care of our customers.
That's really important. Like you said, I mean, no matter how much you can do on the traveler can do on the app, do on the kiosk, it's the employee that's at the desk that is going to be the experience they remember. And if they have a good experience there, they're going to come back. Yeah. Well, we've got one more minute, so last one.
Sure.
What keeps you up at night when you think about the future of American?
What keeps me up at night? It's the excitement of getting out there to 2024. Right, and having a lot of this noise in the system behind us, because I know when we do, look, it was just, I've been in this role for I think 18 months, and you look back in 18 months and you thought, we were in some really interesting times back then, but we've really made tremendous progress. We set out to be reliable, profitable, and hold ourselves accountable to strengthening our balance sheet. At American, we've done all those things. So reliability we've talked about, from profitability, 6 consecutive quarters, and that's helped us to rebuild. We're 70+% the way through paying down and strengthening our balance sheet through paying down debt. By 2025, a $15 billion target. We've done all those things. We've already got the fleet in place. As we take a look out into the future, it's really taking advantage of the opportunity that's going to be there. People want to travel. We do something good in the world. We connect people. And I really think as we come out of the turmoil that appears to be out there in the environment right now, I think people are going to want to travel even more. And we got to be there ready for them.
Good, good. Robert, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, great to see you. Thank you.